how to know if a bikini competitor is taking steroids or any other performance enhancing drug. Let's talk about that. So on my previous video I did on how bikini competitors get so lean and ripped, I had several comments below the video, and you guys can look down below and see it. It's posted right below this one. But I think a lot of people are seeing the video and they're thinking, well, I want to get a bikini body, or I want to look better in a bikini. That's not what we're talking about here. These videos are specifically about competitors in the bikini division for mostly the IFBB, NPC, and WBFF organizations. And the reason for that is they're the most hardcore, okay? And those are the ones with the most notoriety. There's a bunch of other little offshoot organizations that don't mean anything. Your local town probably has one. They're not respectable, and the girls in those shows don't even, most of them, there's a few that might have a nice figure, but most of them don't come in very good condition at all. So that's specifically what I'm talking about in these videos. But with that being said, let me give you some key identifiers, some key indicators on why a competitor and how to identify a competitor that's taking different performance enhancing drugs or even recreational drugs. So if you've seen, and I'm gonna try to post some photos on this video here, or in the thumbnail at least. If you've seen some of these bikini competitors, whether they're usually at the upper echelon of the national level NPC shows, or the IFBB, or the WBFF, like I mentioned. But my point is that when you see these competitors, and I know this because they post their photos all over Instagram. Okay, they plaster them everywhere. And when you see a competitor that her shoulder, her deltoid, the medial deltoid is capped and rounded out like that, okay? And the rest of her body, and when I say rounded out, I'm going to put a photo up. The rest of her body is still lean, still fit, but the medial delt has that super capped, rounded, overdeveloped lateral portion. That's a key indicator she's taking more than likely Anavar and or Winstrol. How do you know that? The reason for that is the delts, the shoulder muscles. You have the anterior, lateral, or medial, and posterior delts, okay? They contain more androgen receptor sites. And all that means is they respond more to steroid use. That's all it means, okay? So another way to tell is some of these girls, now when they're on stage, they're not really flexing. They pose, and they might flex their shoulders some from their posing positions, but they suck their abs in, and if you've seen the posing, you'll know what I'm talking about. But if you ever saw them really crunch their abs or flex hard other muscle groups, or their quads, or maybe their biceps, or their pecs up close for a camera, you wouldn't believe the leanness and how shredded these girls are. Let me give you some examples, and I'm going to try to put some photos up on here. This will help. But when you see a woman, I saw this bikini competitor, and she just got her pro card, I don't know, a month ago. This girl is like early 20s. When she flexed her abs, you can literally see half-inch cuts between the blocks of her abs. That's insane, okay? And not only on top of that, but there's, you know, she's super low body fat, which we'll get to in a minute. But the skin, when she flexed, like her skin was shrink wrapped around the muscles, which provided a more ripped appearance. Now, this is where steroids in particular come in, because even if you are able to get lean enough, and by leanness I just mean a low body fat, when someone that's natural or not on drugs or not on steroids gets super lean, which is very hard to do, oftentimes the musculature becomes depleted and flat and might even have a soft appearance. And what the steroid, what the Anavar or Winstrol or human growth hormone is not a steroid, but it is a drug, but what they can do is allow the musculature to have that crisp, hard, chiseled, sculpted appearance, even in the presence of extremely low-calorie diets. Now you're saying, well, is it safe to do low calorie? Well, not really, but when you get as lean as these girls do, you're going to have to be in some level of deprivation, okay? Especially towards the last month or so. Now, how do they get so lean? Well, the reason they get that lean is if they're on steroids. Steroids aren't fat burners, but they can synergistically work together to aid in fat loss, okay? Now, when you have a lot of women that their genetic body fat set point might be in the mid 20 body fat percent range or even the upper 20% body fat set range, it's extraordinarily difficult for them to get lean, especially under 10% body fat. Not all, but a lot of these bikini competitors, they're under 10% body fat. That's extraordinarily lean for a female. That'd be like a male getting down to really 4 to 5%, okay, which is extremely difficult. So how do they do it? Well, another key component is that one of the biggest, other than the delts for bikini competitors, is having lean separation between the glutes and the hamstrings. And once again, I'm gonna try to get some photos up for this. And for women, a lot of the estrogen receptor sites, and all I mean by that is the places on a female that are more predisposed to fat storage are the hips, the thighs, and the glutes. And you've got women that are getting so lean, especially in those areas, you can actually see where the glutes and the hamstrings separate, if that makes sense. How do they do it? A lot of these girls, number one, they severely abuse diet pills, fat burner pills, thermogenics, severely abuse energy drinks. But what a lot of them do is they take methamphetamines, crystal meth, or cocaine. Why in the world do they do that? How does that help them? Let me explain why. To get that extraordinarily lean, okay, you've got to push your body beyond its reasonable limits. You're already taking clenbuterol, which is, it's not a steroid, but it's a type of drug that can aid fat loss. You're taking your other steroids, Anavar, maybe Winstrol. And then what you do is when you take methamphetamine and or cocaine, what that does is that will severely suppress your appetite. And I know I've talked about not wanting to suppress your appetite, but when you get to this far into the spectrum, you're going to have to suppress it, you know, because you're going to, and it's not healthy, it's not safe, but it is what it is. And so these are girls that are doing 4 to 6 hours of cardio a day. 6 weeks out, maybe even 2 months out from their competition. And they have to do that to push past the safety net or the protective barriers their body sets up and push to these super low, dangerously low body fat levels. And it destroys their appetite. They're able to eat twigs and berries, eat extraordinarily low calorie diets, and do extreme amounts of cardio and exercise. And that's what the cocaine does and the crystal meth or the methamphetamines do. That's what they do. Now, they're never going to admit this. They can't admit this. But once again, a lot of these women, you see them 2 years ago or a year ago or 8 months ago, and a lot of these girls, like I said, are close to 30% body fat at their natural body fat set point, okay? So what are some other indicators on how to tell? Well, if they're that ripped, I've seen bikini girls that when they flex their quads, you can see the cross striations in their vastus lateralis, which is the outside muscle of their quad, or of anybody's quad. And once again, you get them on stage, and you know, even I did a photo shoot back in 2004, and if the photos are on my website on my About Me page, if you want to check them out. But I got shredded, and I never got so lean to where, you know, I could see my ham glute tie-in, you know, or the separation. But you've got 24-year-old, 31-year-old, 22-year-old, 26-year-old women that are getting that lean, and that's how they're doing it. When you see a woman that's that disgustingly lean, and I don't say disgusting in a derogatory sense, because I think it's almost like a work of art. I do appreciate that that level of I don't want to say athleticism because they're not athletes, and I'll do a video on that later. But I do appreciate that level of aesthetic appeal. But I see it for what it is. But where am I going with this? But that's how you identify. That's how you can identify somebody that is on performance-enhancing drugs, steroids, or even recreational drugs to achieve that super lean, ripped figure. WetWolfTraining.com, Wet Wolf Nutrition, signing out.